Get started for free on IBM Cloud. With an IBM Cloud Lite account, you can access more than 40 always free services. No credit card required and no time limits. Explore our free tier and create your account today at ibm.biz/cloudfree.
Kids need wholesome snacks to fuel their bodies and imaginations, like the delicious soft-bake organic Cliff Kid Z-Bar. With 10 grams of whole grains, it was made for active kids like mine. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm on stopwatch duty for the backyard obstacle course. Grab a box of Cliff Kid Z-Bar snacks for playtime anytime.
Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 106 called Roohi. Today's episode is sponsored by Bios Fertility Institute. You guys, I've had the pleasure of working with Bios for Fertility Rally, and I cannot say enough good things about how much Bios gets it when it comes to infertility, fertility, and the patient experience. Bios is built on a foundation of patient-centered care, evidence-based medicine, and innovative technology. They have clinic locations throughout the country and patients from around the globe. And as a patient, you'll notice a difference from your very first phone call to the team celebration of your positive pregnancy test and everything in between. Bios physicians are board certified and fellowship trained reproductive endocrinologists and infertility specialists. Many of them have also experienced fertility treatment or a struggle to build their own family firsthand. The Bios Fertility Institute team works to create an individualized plan best suited for a patient's emotional, physical, and financial needs. I got to know Bios first through their social media handle, and I'm super impressed by their commitment to the fertility community overall. Through Instagram, Facebook, their blog, and other social media, they offer great resources and credible fertility education. Check them out in all the social places at Bios Fertility, and check out the blog on their website, biosfertility.com. To learn more about Bios, to take advantage of that education and fertility information, or to schedule your first appointment, visit biosfertility.com. That's biosfertility.com. Thanks, Bios. Before we get started, I just want to remind you guys that tickets are available right now for Fertility Rally Live, which is the event that Blair from Fab Fertility and I are throwing on April 17th. It's an all-day event, it's virtual, and we have got tons of amazing speakers, big names from this community and beyond, and we are here for all of it, and we hope you can join us. So definitely check it out at fertilityrally.com. Tickets are available now. All right, guys, I am so excited about today's guest, Dr. Roohi Jalani. In our community, Roohi is an icon. She's what I'd like to call a superwoman. She is just as brilliant as she is beautiful. She is a reproductive endocrinologist and an infertility specialist. She's an outspoken advocate, a mother, a wife, Miss India International, and she uses her ginormous social media following, almost 100,000 followers, to reach both her followers and empower her patients and the TTC community worldwide with her unique and inspiring voice. One more thing, Roohi is also currently undergoing IVF treatment. So we recorded this episode a couple of weeks ago after she had just undergone a frozen embryo transfer and was in the middle of her 2-week wait. I'm not going to let you guys know what happened. You can look at her Instagram if you want a follow-up. But for now, I would listen to this story, which is incredible and starts with her diagnosis of PCOS when she was just 12. So I'm thankful to now call Roohi a friend. I'm so glad she is out in the field fighting the good fight for women every single day. Roohi, you are amazing. And without further ado, this is Roohi's infertility story. Hi, Roohi. Thank you so much for doing this on a Sunday. I know you're so busy, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So I want to start with when you were 12. This is what I read, and I feel like you told me this another time as well. You walked into Dr. Jabmoni's office.
Yes.
And you were intrigued with all the stuff that you saw in this person's office. So can you tell me about that? And it kind of kicked off your medical intrigue in your career.
Yeah, it actually started with my own lack of a cycle or irregular cycle, whatever you'd call it at that point, that led me to a reproductive endocrinologist's office. And at that point, they did way more than just fertility. They did like everything because it's such a new field. Now it's like the late 80s, early 90s. And I walked in and she had, when you had posters and really no social media to learn. So there's posters all over her wall of stuff that you're not supposed to talk about, your private parts. And
right.
That's what we called them back then.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, I was really like, why am I here? What's going on? Is there something wrong with me? Like, just more intrigued as to why I was there and what kind of stuff is there. So finally I asked her, I'm like, well, what do you do? What kind of doctor you are? And I think because that was her bread and butter. And that's what we do mostly it was very simple. She goes, I help make babies. That's how it all started.
And was that the moment where you're like, ooh, I'm intrigued. I want to go down that road.
Oh my God. Yeah. I was just baffled. I think it took me I still remember like sitting in her room saying, you make babies? Like, wait a minute. I thought God made babies. Like, how do you make babies? How does this happen? I literally said that. It's like, how do you make a baby? Mm-hmm. And at that time she was like, oh, she said 2 cells. She kept it kosher for me. She goes, I take 2 cells and I put them together and I make a little baby and I put it back. And she goes, and very nonchalantly, I still remember her saying, you're going to need help one day, but it'll be easy. You're going to pop a pill and it's going to work for you.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what was going on with you physically that you were there in the first place? You said irregular cycle.
Yeah, I had irregular cycles, and she had diagnosed me with PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome, which at that time, different diagnostic criteria. So I think I was shuffled around a bit more than I hope people aren't shuffled around as much as I was shuffled around. Unfortunately, I still see it a lot that I'm the first one now telling somebody in their 30s, in their late 20s that, hey, you have PCOS, and they're like completely baffled that I'm saying it. So she was the first one to diagnose me with polycystic ovarian syndrome and not just shoo me away and say, oh, you're too skinny or you're anorexic or you have an eating disorder or, you're in too many activities.
Because had you heard those things from other doctors?
Yeah, but she was actually my last stop out of multiples. And it started with a pediatrician, then a family practitioner, then an internist. And I was just kind of, like one doctor would shuffle me to another doctor, then to another doctor. And there was no answers. Then no one was saying, this is why this is happening. Everyone would say, oh, you can fix it. Just get on birth control to my mom. And one, that wasn't going to happen, coming from like a very conservative family. She goes, why would she need that? No. So she was more interested in the why. And so she kept asking and asking everybody until finally her older brother said, oh, you know what? She needs a reproductive endocrinologist. So go here.
Do you know if anybody else in your family, like your mom, for example, had any sort of reproductive issues, or was it hereditary?
She didn't at all. So I think it truly came as a shock for me. The reason I went to Jabberwocky is because she actually treated my uncle's wife, who is not blood related to us, so for infertility. And he's the one who had said, go to her. She does endocrinology and she can probably help you guys. It was a big moment in finally having a diagnosis, no longer being forced to eat, and my mom watching me because she thought I was an anorexic. It was a moment, like not at that point, it didn't click to me when she said, oh, you're going to need help. It now resonates like after needing help and after having kids, like, oh, that's what she meant. I never realized that piece, I guess, stuck with me. What really at that point was, you can make babies. Like, this is crazy. Like, I want to make babies for somebody. I want to be you. I remember saying, I want to be you.
Yes, that's so cool. And I'm so glad that you had such a cool like role model and somebody that took you seriously. So what were they doing for you treatment wise? Did you end up going on birth control?
I didn't for a while because I think for my mom, it was, okay, long as, there's nothing wrong with you, nothing I need to know, worry about. They didn't. Now how we look at PCOS is we look at it as more of a complete disorder of your whole life, that it can impact you at different states and it can impact no matter what you're trying to do. I think back then it was more only if you're trying to get pregnant, you don't really need a period. I just don't remember saying you don't really need a period. I don't think that focus on the uterine cancer and hyperplasia and irregular bleeding, all of that was focused on as much. So I didn't. My mom had her solution, answer. I didn't care. You tell a little girl, you're not going to get a period. I was like, okay, this is amazing.
Totally. I'm curious, how was sex ed for you growing up? Because we talk about this a lot, and I think it is improving now when we have, great REIs and people like you in the field who are working hard to make sure that young women and young guys know a lot more about their reproductive systems than they did when I was growing up, for example, when it was just, pounded into my brain. Don't get pregnant. It's so easy to get pregnant. Have sex once, you're going to get knocked up. Do you feel like it's changing?
I think it's changing. I hope it's changing. But to be very honest, I trained and worked in Michigan for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, it is still not allowed. You're not allowed to teach sex ed.
Wow.
So unfortunately, no. But what is changing is access, right? Kids no longer learn in school about this stuff. Mm-hmm. They learn on TikTok and social media and their friends. And even if you don't allow your kids to be on social media and TikTok, they have friends who are, and that's how they're learning. And I think it's so amazing to see my friends who do more general OBGYN kind of teach about, hygiene and what's right, what's wrong, and what are you, all of the stuff that we never knew about. We only learn about don't have sex. If you have sex, you're going to get pregnant, and that's it. Mm-hmm. But not about your cycle, not about what it means. Hormonal headaches. What is that? I remember suffering from insane headaches in high school, and I didn't know it's because I constantly had these high estrogen levels. My acne was horrible. I just kept getting put on here's benzoyl peroxide, here's Clearasil at that time, Clearasil pads, but no one addressed the underlying issue. And I really wish somebody would have hey, this is all part of your PCOS.
It's funny because my daughter, she gets so much of her information on TikTok, most of it actually. That was the question I had for you too, is that you're very active on social media. And I know we talked about this on our Rally Live panel last fall as well, that, you are really using it to your advantage to, spread education, but also kind of make it palatable and entertaining. So tell me when you started with social media and how it's impacted your relationship with your patients and just medicine in general for you.
And it started when I transitioned my fellowship to what's called a WRHR, Women's Reproductive Health Research Grant, WRHR, and you call it a WRHR.
Okay.
So it's a K-12. It's an institutional grant that's awarded based on the research you're doing. And my passion was fertility preservation and ovarian aging. Especially, you notice it more with gonadotoxic therapy, like chemotherapy, but the pathophysiology, meaning how it happens, is very similar to patients who have DOR, diminished reserve, or premature ovarian failure. Mm-hmm. So that's what I was studying. So I was just I'm going to solve the world. I'm going to fix this. We're going to figure out these biomarkers. We're going to help predict this for other females. And, so excited, as a fellow, as this young, I'm going to change the world feeling. And I think that was my first hit with, God, there's so much more to medicine that we don't really see that goes on behind the politics, behind, what it means to actually work, to be a grown-up and work, where your paycheck comes from, and how do you allocate your time and your resources, and what the department needs versus what your research needs versus what your patients needs. And I think it was a lot. It was a lot for me to take on at a very young age. It was not what I envisioned. And so I was this is not what I wanted. It sounded really grand and great on paper, but it's a lot. It's a lot for me to do. And I don't get to do what I love most, which is patient care. Mm. So I very quickly, and I also had 2 very young kids back to back after a lot of infertility and after trying for a long time. So it was time to kind of move back to Chicago where we had more help and more care. So we moved back and I joined private practice. But I joined a practice which believed in that belief that there's no one right way to do it. And we still don't know everything about fertility. Mm-hmm. And we have to continue to evolve and focus on research. So I met Angie over coffee, absolutely fell in love with her vision and the fact that she wants to evolve and be innovative and has a vision. So I continued my research. I became the head of research and education. We have a bunch of pre-meds, med students, fellows, and residents under us. We do research, and I get to practice clinical medicine.
Mm-hmm. And so Angie she's the founder of Bios, correct?
She is the founder of Bios.
Right.
So here I am now, hopefully trying to change the world with research and presenting papers and abstracts and book chapters and kind of living out what I always envisioned, like figuring out the why. Because ultimate goal is not to have infertility patients, but educate our demographic so they learn to preserve their fertility, then they understand it. And that's how it transitioned. So when I moved to Chicago, I said, well, how do I impact my patients? How do I teach them? Like what was missing when I was a patient? And it's sad to think that I was actually a fertility doctor and I didn't know. I didn't know what time you take these medications. I didn't know what needle felt better than the other needle. I don't know why you feel so overwhelmed when you got this big box of medications, like why I was constantly crying. I didn't know like the process of fertility. I knew the science, but as I'm sure you can attest to, and I can attest to it, the science does not always follow your body. Everyone's body is so different.
Right.
So it's a whole different field of medicine. And unfortunately, the only way I learned that was actually being a patient. As everyone kept saying, oh, you have so many eggs. And then all my 40 eggs became one embryo. I'm like, what happened to all of them? So that aspect of fertility, I truly didn't learn. So my goal became once I regained that control, left that institution, moved to Chicago with Angie, was how do I empower my patient? How do we educate? Most of it came from, okay, well, and your new consult, this is what we do and this is what we teach. But what about before I meet them? How do they know that they're going to need to come see me, right? Like I waited a really long time before I actually went to the doctor. I self-treated a lot, which is quite embarrassing. Then I asked my friends to treat me. But how do I tell these patients who don't have that access, like this is what they should look for, that this is when they should be concerned? And that's how my social media started. And then I started opening up more and more about my own journey and my why behind it.
Right. Okay. So can we backtrack, please, just to where, I want to talk about when you started to try to have kids and what happened. I'd love to get into some of that if you don't mind. So just kind of backing up a little bit, what happened when you and your husband started to try? Did you have problems from the get-go because of the PCOS?
Yeah. So because I remembered her saying, now it all came back, you're going to pop a pill and it's going to work. I was like, it's so simple, right? Like,
you're like, where's that pill?
I was like, I'm not going to see a doctor. I'm going to take a fertility pill. And by that time I knew it was ovulation induction. So I was like, I'm going to take my fertility pill and I'm going to get pregnant. So of course I had my best friend call in my pill and then we tried and then it didn't work. And then
what was the pill?
It was at that time Clomid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So then I took some more Clomid and then it didn't work. And then I took it some more and then it didn't work. And then I was like, oh, okay, I must be doing this wrong, So then I started asking my attendings at that time who didn't know I was trying. I was like, why do you give it on day 3 and not day 5 or day 2? And of course, my attending goes, oh, and patients who it's failed. And sometimes you can take the pill a little bit earlier. So you recruit more follicles. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. So then,
my God. So you're like self-medicating, like you said.
Completely self-medicating.
Why didn't you feel like you wanted to make the leap and start becoming a patient for real?
I think it was ingrained in my head that it was going to work.
Okay.
And it had to work and every time anyone would scan me, they would literally say, oh, your tubes look so beautiful. Your ovaries look so good.
Right.
And here I am a doctor. So of course I'm having everyone scan me, telling them that they're practice scanning. They have no clue what I'm actually trying to do, but I'm just telling my friends, oh, just practice scan on me. Oh, do a saline on me. So that's what they think they're doing. So I was like, oh, this is going to work. Everyone says I have everything that I need. My doctor said I'm going to pop a pill, which is my letrozole, and it's going to work. And unfortunately, it didn't work. After 6 months of doing this back and forth, I finally ended up going to an OB, also my friend. And I said, you know what, can you give me letrozole? And right around then, around 2011-ish, that PCOS trial came out where it said letrozole was a little bit better for PCO patients. Okay. Instead of Clomid. So then we switched to letrozole, tried that for a couple cycles, didn't work. And then went to finally mustered the courage to go to an RE, and I told her like my limitations and what I wanted. And of course, I was like, well, the IUI is first step, right? And she humored me. She was like, yeah, you can do an IUI. So I did an IUI. Once again, I won't call her out, but with that education, because if she would have told me, hey, normal sperm, if you've done this like for a year now, you're going to need something more. The IUI is really not going to add much. So I did more IUIs. It wasn't working. I was getting biochemicals. Like I would test at home. Of course, you pee in the trigger, you pee out the trigger, all sorts of fun stuff. I was doing all sorts of craziness.
Right.
And I would get faint positives. I would get biochemicals. I would check, get to like a 20 or a 30, my beta, and it would fall again. And I went back to her after failed IUIs, and she's like, you need IVF. And I was like, no way. How could you go from an IUI to IVF? Once again, just reverting back to patient mode, not knowing that one, that's probably those are the only two things that I could do. And two, it just makes sense. Like I failed enough.
Hold that thought, guys. If you're anything like me, your beauty and skincare routines have probably changed quite a bit over the past year. Thankfully, I found a new beauty brand that helps me look and feel my best, even if I'm just on Zoom calls. Thrive Cosmetics offers high-performance, award-winning products that are both vegan and cruelty-free. Plus, for every product you purchase, they donate to help a woman thrive. I love that. Thrive Cosmetics products are made with high-performance, skin-loving ingredients. Their clinically proven formulas highlight your best features and improve your skin over time. Plus, their products are formulated without parabens, sulfates, and phthalates. Okay, let's talk about their mascara. You've probably heard about Thrive Cosmetics Liquid Lash Extensions Mascara, which is sold every 5 seconds and has nearly 12,000 5-star reviews. It's also an Allure Best of Beauty award winner. The mascara is really cool because it looks like you're wearing lash extensions, but you don't have the glue or the expensive salon prices. Plus, it actually supports longer, stronger, and healthier looking lashes over time. It's flake-free, smudge-free, and clump-free. Every time I wear it, I feel like I'm wearing fake lashes, but I'm not. A few more things. Thrive is 100% vegan and cruelty-free. They never test on animals. They are Leaping Bunny and PETA certified. And they have this awesome program called Bigger Than Beauty, which means that for every product purchased, Thrive Cosmetics helps women in need by donating funds and products to help them thrive. All right, guys, so start thriving and help women in need today by going to thrivecosmetics.com/infertile AF for 15% off your first purchase. That's Thrive, CAUSE medics.com/infertile AF for 15% off. Thanks, Thrive. Hold that thought. So guys, most of us have the best intentions to eat better, cut back on takeout, make home-cooked meals, but really, it doesn't happen, especially during a pandemic. With today's unpredictable times, even a trip to the grocery store can be stressful. Enter Gobble, a meal kit delivery service designed for real life. It's easy, it's delicious, and it's a great way to create a healthy meal routine that's personalized for your busy lifestyle. And I have a really good deal to get you guys started. With Gobble, no matter how crazy your schedule is, you can still get a nutritious, flavorful, homemade dinner on the table because it only takes 15 minutes. Truly. And there's no menu planning, no shopping, no crazy prep time required. Gobble has an army of sous chefs who do the time-consuming work for you. They pre-portion and prep the fresh, high-quality ingredients, they create spice blends, and they simmer the perfect sauces. All you have to do is pick meals from Gobble's extensive dinner menu each week. They have a huge variety of flavors, classic dishes, global recipes, vegetarian options, and even a line of lean and clean recipes that are low-cal and low-carb. Here's how it works. The Gobble box is delivered fresh right to your doorstep, and it's ready to serve in just 15 minutes. According to Business Insider, it's the easiest meal kit I've ever tried, and it tastes great too. Plus, it's not a big commitment. You can skip delivery weeks or cancel the service at any time. All right, so here comes the offer. Gobble is offering you guys, as Infertile AF listeners, an awesome limited time deal. 6 meals for just $36 plus free shipping. That's dinner for two for 3 nights for just $36. To get this special offer now, go to gobble.com/infertileaf. That's gobble.com/infertileaf for 6 meals for just $36. Do it, guys. Gobble it up. Right. So let me ask you this real quick. When you had a biochemical, does that count as a miscarriage in your opinion? Or is it more of a failed something?
In my opinion, yeah, but it's not supposed to.
Okay.
Miscarriage is by textbook, you're supposed to actually have a SAC or like a clinical evidence of a pregnancy.
Okay. Because I had a couple of those as well. And I do count them as 4 miscarriages total, although a couple of them were very early. But we talk about that a lot, a loss is a loss. It doesn't really matter how far along. So I was just wondering what your personal opinion was on it.
Yeah, I always tell my patients that just because it didn't make it that far, that doesn't mean it wasn't a pregnancy. So I do count them as a loss, especially when I'm trying to counsel my patients on next steps. I tell them that's a pregnancy. There's something else going on. And I wish somebody would have told me that, let me help you.
Right. So you're moving on to IUI next, right?
Yeah.
At this point. Okay.
At this point, I add in the IUI. Doesn't work. Then I switch clinics again. Then I begged them to do injectables. And everyone at this point is so scared because I'm now this young 30-year-old. And they're like, we're not going to do injections on you. They're like, you have an AMH, which is a marker of your ovarian reserve. And typically it's between 3 to 5. And here I am at 17. I have 60 eggs on each side. They're scared. They're so scared. I could see it in their eyes. I still remember I had a biochemical on one of them. And the doctor called me and was like, there's going to be triplets in there. You're going to have to reduce. This is what you're going to do. He walked me through how I'm going to reduce and where I'm going to go. And it was just a biochemical. And then finally, I think that was that point. And he goes, you can't do any of this. You're going to have to do IVF. And we finally did it. It was March 2013. 2012. I don't even remember.
It was funny that the dates get muddy, right? As the years go on.
That's how we had our son. But it took me a really long time. And I wish I had, and I wish I would have listened when they said it's not going to work or change. But one of the downsides was no one really told me why. They just said, after 3, it doesn't work. After 3, it doesn't work. I was like, what does that mean? Tell me why.
So what was this doing to you emotionally? Were you feeling depressed that it wasn't happening? Or what kinds of things were you and your husband going through? I love to always touch on the emotional side of this as well.
Anger. I was angry. Why wasn't it working? It was supposed to work, and why wasn't it working? He's a problem solver by nature. So he's like, let's fix it, So he would rely on me because I'm the fertility doctor. So I would tell him, this is what we're going to do. And he'd be like, okay. So he was just kind of along for the ride.
Okay. So then it finally did work with your son. Were you nervous during that pregnancy? Because that's another thing we talk about a lot at Fertility Rally is, after you've suffered losses or gone through a lot, it's hard to relax even when you do get pregnant.
Yeah, 100%. I think it was really, really hard to kind of let go and be completely okay and know that things are going to be okay. So we, especially with him, I remember, with your second, or at least with my second one, it was much easier. I missed prenatal appointments. I rescheduled stuff, but I remember with him, that came first. He was our precious baby. Everyone has to wash their hands. We can't leave the house after he was born.
Right.
So
totally.
It's scarring because you constantly think about, man, we worked so hard, to have him. God forbid, something were to happen. But yeah, it is so scary. I think the worst part is, and I don't think this will ever leave, you don't really get to enjoy it. I remember thinking of people making their nurseries, and I was constantly waiting for something to go bad. And I was like, I'm not going to make my nursery, and I'm not going to do this. And we're just going to wait.
Yeah, 100%. I know exactly what you mean. Then you had your daughter. So what was between your son and your daughter, what happened?
I was breastfeeding my son until a year. And we finished in a year. And I was like, not even a year, until 6 months, they said you need to let your body heal. Mm-hmm. So at the 6-month mark, I started pumping and in between and freezing and got this crazy fertility patients. I feel like we all do this. I had a deep freezer in every garage we possibly could even stay at for a day. My mom's house, our house. So I froze enough milk and I started weaning. And I guess sometime in between then, I ovulated and was pregnant even before I knew it. So finally went to my doctor after I stopped feeding saying, okay, we're ready to do IVF again. And I went to the same doctor and without thinking, I was placed on Provera. And that's my fault. Cause I was like, oh yeah. Like at this, now I'm a fellow at this place. So I take Provera, it doesn't work. And I take it for another 2 weeks and it doesn't work. And they're like, oh, it's because you're breastfeeding. Let's get you in for a scan and blood work. And I remember this was like March 2015. And so they're scanning me and they start going up like really high in my belly. And I was like, what are you scanning? And they're like, oh, you're pregnant. And I was like, excuse me? And they're like, yeah, you're like, and I was pretty far along. I was in my 2nd trimester.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, already. And I didn't know. And I kept taking Provera to get a period and no period. And here I was. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So what did that feel like when you got that news?
Oh my God. It was like, almost felt ungrateful for being scared because I was like, I didn't expect this. How am I going to have 2 such little kids? And this is happening much sooner. I don't know if I'm ready. And I truly felt so ungrateful because here I am, like I wanted a baby, but you become so used to the mechanical aspect of IVF and like planning that this unpredictability threw me for a loop. I almost missed the planning of IVF. And I was like, I had a plan. This is what we were going to do. Like, why is this wrench in my plan?
So it felt interesting.
It felt much better though, not being on meds and being almost halfway done with your pregnancy. Felt amazing, but not good because I was not ready. I was really scared. I was more scared and sad that I didn't get to enjoy this baby that I'd like so longed for. And I wanted his milestones to be done and I wanted him to be like over 2 years old, like I guess the scarring of infertility never leaves you. And I wanted him so bad that I felt like I was taking away from him. Like I was doing him a disservice.
I'm so glad that you said that because I do think that it's exactly right. The scarring of infertility never leaves you. And so many of us know that. I still, honestly, Roohi, like I still get real like physical reactions to like a Pampers commercial or something like that. That was like so triggering when I was going through it. It still makes me feel triggered to a certain degree.
100%. I literally, like, I was just thinking about this, like when people announce like baby showers or their pregnancies, I think about those moments, how I felt. Like I remember like somebody announced their pregnancy and I was so mad and I took it out on my poor husband. He like walked in like asking what I want for dinner. And I like went crazy. It's like, dinner? Who's thinking about dinner? She just announced her pregnancy. He goes, so like you're sad because she's happy? It's like, oh my God. I was like, how dare you say that? Like nothing that came out of his mouth could have been right. But yeah. Completely.
So how far apart are your babies?
They're less than 2 years apart. They're about 1.5 years.
Okay. So can we talk about what's happening with you now?
Yeah. So because of that feeling of I was, like taking away from my kids that I've so longed for. And then I think it made it easy. I was like, okay, I have 1 boy, 1 girl. I'm done, and let's not talk about the price of fertility treatment, right? All of those, I remember being a fellow and I would go in and they'd be like, follow them, like $1,000. I was like, $1,000?
You're like, can't I get a deal?
I know. I was like, a fellow, please give me one for free.
Really? You'd think you could swap, like trade, like I'll find you this kind of thing if you swap me with that. That's probably not very ethical, right?
No, but yeah, that's exactly how I felt. I was like, man, this sucks. So we're like, we're good. It was tolling. I had like all sorts of reactions to these medications and, you can't get lucky twice. It can't happen naturally again, I guess. That was my one lucky, wonderful little baby. So we actually were like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Then we kind of stopped. And then I randomly checked my blood work last year, 2 years ago. I don't even remember when I did it, 2 years ago.
I know. What year is it, right?
Yeah. It's COVID literally through my life away. I feel like I'm stuck in March 2020 until the world comes back to normal.
Totally.
But I remember I have poor quality. So one of my nurses like, let's just check your FSH, make sure you're okay, just in case you still want your third. And that's something I really tell my patients that, I remember being in the heat of things. And when the doctor would say, what do you want? Like, what does your family look like? Or how many kids? And we weren't having those conversations then. It was more like, how many do you want? One or two, And I remember I was like, God, just give me one and I won't be greedy. And then from one, it became, God, just give me two. I won't be greedy. But my ideal, like when I grew up, I always envisioned myself having 3 little kids. And I guess that idea never left me. So, and I always would talk about it with my nurses, and you know how we're at Bios, it's like a family, everyone's in everyone's business. So she's like, let's just check your FSH. I know you want 3 kids. So I was like, okay, let me just check it. And it came back even worse than it ever was. And I knew I had really bad eggs. So she was like, okay, you don't get to pick because you're not going to do it. You're starting. This is your calendar. This is what you're doing. You're taking it. We're freezing them. I don't care when and how and if you want to use them, but we're going to freeze them.
Wow. I love that somebody kind of was like, here's what's happening. Because sometimes do you find it so hard to sometimes make your own decisions? Like I remember thinking, I just want someone to tell me what to do. Yes,
100%. And I'm so glad she did. I'm forever grateful, because had she not done it, I could 100% see like me, like when the dust settles and my kids are older, saying, man, I really wish I had that third, because I really do. I want 3. So we froze our embryos, and then once again, the time is never right? So I was like, I just need time. And I had these milestones that I would set for myself, and I'd keep meeting them. And she would keep asking, are you ready? Are you ready now? What about now? And I was like, I don't know. She was like, okay, this is what you're doing. And we kind of started prep in December and looking. And I've always had a thin lining issue, even with my son, where the uterus, like the middle of the uterus, where the embryo implants never got good enough. But I thought at that time it's because I'd done so many rounds of Clomid and so many rounds of letrozole and kept having these biochemicals, that it was because of that, because those can cause thin lining. But I guess it wasn't. And I never followed up after, because then I had my daughter and then didn't really go back to testing fertility or looking at my lining aspect. But since December, we were trying and tracking and trying to figure out what to do. Tried natural cycles, because I have this horrible progesterone allergy also, and it wasn't working, got canceled. Tried different form, like the estrogen, didn't work, canceled. Then I took a break just to kind of regroup and took a little vacation, got my COVID vaccine, took a month off, and tried a random protocol that she suggested. And it got me close. It got me to, you wanted at least 8 millimeters between a 7 to 8, ideally 8 or above. And got
for the lining?
For the lining. Okay. Yeah. And it got me to 7.2 millimeters. I asked my sonographer to give me a grade, and I'm competitive, as you can tell. And I was like, what do I get, an A, B, or C? And she was like, you get a B. And she saw my face. She's like, okay, a B plus. And I was like, I'm so sad. Like, you're putting my beautiful embryo in a B.
Right.
But I guess it was the best as my lining could get. And so we just did a transfer. We've been trying since December, but I guess this is the first time that I actually was really compliant and followed what she said. I've been very non-compliant. Sometimes doctors make the worst patients and you think you know better. And clearly I did not.
So this was like a couple of days ago that you had the transfer, right? So thank you for sharing this with us, because it's such fresh news. But how do you deal with like the 2-week wait? As you just said, doctors make the worst patients, which I think is so interesting, because I love hearing the perspective of doctors who are going through this. So what are you doing to get through it?
Distractions. I think that's for me, I need to stay distracted. If I'm not distracted, I literally opened a pregnancy test this morning and I'm like, no, are you crazy? Like, what are you doing? It's like, just a couple of days ago, stop doing it, put it away right now. And I had to talk myself out of it.
Were you able to talk yourself out of it?
Yeah, I sure was.
Oh my God.
I was like, this is going to drive you crazy. Don't even start. Don't get on that crazy train just yet.
Right.
I was on that train. I had thousands and thousands of pregnancy tests like everywhere in my house.
Mm-hmm.
So I put it away. And I think distractions, not thinking about it, works for me. Staying very occupied. I like to shop. So shopping really helps.
That's a good thing.
But yeah, just working. And when I'm not busy, like I realized, like, why did I think about that this morning? And it's because, I didn't have to get up and go to work. Like yesterday I was on call. I went to work and not once did I think about it, but all day I haven't been able to stop thinking.
It's so cool to show that, like, even as an REI, you're so human and you're going through the same thing as your patients are going through, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's such a cool perspective. I guess the last thing I would want to say, other than that, I'm so rooting for you and I hope this works out. What kind of advice would you give to somebody who might be listening to this, who's just starting out on their journey? Like maybe they've, been trying to get pregnant for a short time and they're not. Like, what do you say to people, or somebody who comes into your office and is just like feeling defeated and not sure where to turn?
I always tell my patients that no one wants to come to a fertility doctor, not even me, and I'm a fertility doctor. Like, this is a last
I love you. That's so good.
Right? I'm like, no one wants to be here. But if you educate yourself on why you're here, and if you make it more of a project, like proactive, like this is how me and my partner are going to build our perfect family, like our ideal family on our time without stress, I think it really shifts the conversation. Instead of the hardest part, that was so hard for me with my son and that made it unbearable, like I hated it, was I wanted it so bad and I wanted it yesterday and I did not want to see a doctor. And this was literally my last ditch effort. And by the time I actually got the courage to see somebody, I was done. Like I was trying to do everything at home. And I tell patients, like, I'm glad, like, and you'll see, like, when I take histories, they'll add in, well, we tried 1 year, but we didn't really try. And then the next year we tried them, but we only added in ovulation predictor kids, like 6 months. And then I stopped my vitamins. And in that, what I'm really unwrapping is that you don't want to be here. And you want me to tell you, you don't have to be here because you haven't completely done what you need to do at home. And I think that idea of saying, and I have to tell myself this too, like, I need to be here, but I'm here for a good reason. I'm going to get what I want at the end. And just letting go will make it so much easier, and shifting our mindset. It's not as easy, but acknowledging it really helps, because acknowledging mine, like, hey, I need to be here. It's not as easy as Dr. Jabin when he said, I'm not going to pop that pill and that's not going to be me. At least now at that time, really, I needed somebody to tell me that. And I don't think, not that any doctors are bad, and every doctor's practice differently. And no one was telling me that. No one said, why don't you want to do IVF? I mean, if they would have asked me, I would have said, well, this is what this doctor told me. She said, I have a lot of eggs. Why am I not getting pregnant? Like, help me understand the why, and maybe I'll do what you want me to do. But no one told me my why. They just said, if it fails 3 times, it's not going to work. Like, what does that mean?
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Roohi, thank you so much for sharing your story with me. Guys, definitely check her out on Instagram at Roohi Jelani MD, and also check out Vios, who sponsored our episode today. So thank you, Vios. Also, one more reminder that Fertility Rally Live is April 17th. If you want more info or to find out who is going to be some of our incredible speakers that day, you can go to fertilityrally.com to get tickets, or you can check out our Instagram at Fertility Rally. So we hope to see you guys there. It's going to be an incredible event, tons of giveaways, tons of education, entertainment, empowerment. It's all the things. We're working so hard to make it the best day for you. So come and join us and feel supported, and know that you are not alone no matter what you're going through. All right. Talk to you next time.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. And now save up to $500 on select Sleep Number 360 Smart Beds, plus special financing on all smart beds, only for a limited time. Special financing subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payments required. See store for details.
Kids need wholesome snacks to fuel their bodies and imaginations, like the delicious soft-bake organic Cliff Kid Z-Bar. With 10 grams of whole grains, it was made for active kids like mine. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm on stopwatch duty for the backyard obstacle course. Grab a box of Cliff Kid Z-Bar snacks for playtime anytime.